don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically. I'm deaf. Straight up.
And with that, a star was born. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the overlooked steel pick of the 2022 draft, has risen above what it should have ever hoped to accomplish, both critically and economically. A sequel to an animated movie from 11 years ago that I saw, but do not remember whatsoever. Who is this man? Joel Crawford. The DreamWorks sequel guy came absolutely ready to play. Knocked it out of the park. This movie is great, and the fact that it's doing so well is glorious, because it means something glorious for movies. It means that word of mouth still means something for movie releases. Did you watch a trailer for this movie? No. Was it any particular form of advertisement or a TV spot produced by DreamWorks that made you decide on a whim to get up from your couch, leave your home, and go watch a talking cat with a sword and some bluntstones? No. So what the hell convinced so many people to go watch this movie and cause it to actually go up in box office on its second weekend? None other than good old social media. Some random TikTok with millions of views by some guy named Jimbo 620 420 swooped in and saved cinema. What happened here is actual insanity.
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it.
As DreamWorks was maybe counting their losses in advance to this one, they now find themselves drowning in success. What happened here with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, as goofy as this is going to sound, shows just how powerful memes are for the kind of movies that get made. Hear me out.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
This sort of thing has happened a ton in recent years, where a project has gone viral online, blowing away the viewership expectations. But unless it was a Marvel movie or Minions: The Rise of Gru, it has almost always been a TV series on streaming. Let's take a look back. Squid Game, Stranger Things, Wednesday, Dahmer, Outer Banks, The Mandalorian, Euphoria, the titans of projects going viral. Projects that took 100% advantage over these newer forms of advertisement, striking a nerve with younger audiences who then basically take over the marketing department for them.
It's free real estate.
Also something wild to note, nearly all of these are original stories. Meanwhile, at the cinemas, original stories suffer while big IPs rake in the cash. It's like at home, on streaming, everything is flipped, and the Netflix studio execs then sit back with their feet up and write the checks for season 2. Movies just don't seem to crack this code nearly as often. Yet Puss in Boots did, and it did big time, thanks to a wolf who did some whistling. Maybe more than a good hero, people love a good villain. For some reason, people are obsessed with antagonists who reek of coolness and complexity, or sometimes of simplicity. Maybe out of some urge to connect with the darker parts of ourselves that we don't express in the regular world. When screenwriters write a character, it's all about trying to make him or her relatable to an audience. But sometimes, when you write a character who is just you, it can be boring. But when a character is beyond you, beyond the powers you could ever hold, the persona you could never have, it's almost like some kind of twisted envy that makes us love them so much. And this is no less the case for the big bad wolf here. DreamWorks has been on the villain game for ages.
Oh no! What's happening?
From the whistle, to the voice, to the hood, to the Grim Reaper scythes, the wolf steals the show. But to say that his mere audio-visual appearance is the only thing that makes him work so well as a villain would be false. What makes him really work as a villain, on top of all of that cool stuff that makes you crack a smile, is his relationship to the hero. His relationship to Puss in Boots, and what that actually means for the story. Just like all the best villains in cinematic history, they form a kind of poetic, thematic connection.
You complete me.
In a movie about Puss in Boots, an adventurous cat who finds himself on his 9th and final life, already a fantastic premise to kick it off.
This idea that Puss in Boots is on the last of his 9 lives, and as we kept talking about it, we're like, but underneath that, it's about him realizing he has 1 life. This could be a really, absurd and poignant story.
What better antagonist could they create than the very thing he so desperately wishes to escape, his final life, death? And from that, we found ourselves watching a children's movie containing some real dark and heavy themes that feel a bit much for a children's movie. But hey, they need to learn at some point, get the nightmares done early, because just like death, there's no avoiding it. And so from the opening scene of the film, this is what the filmmakers want to do with this story. We begin the film in this grand, adventurous, wild, swashbuckling opening. But these grand, adventurous, wild, swashbuckling opening 20 minutes aren't just for the kids. No, there's actually a much bigger and more deliberate effort happening here. This is a story about
Puss in Boots! I laugh at death! You see?
the purpose of these opening 20 minutes is to show us that, so that when death comes into the picture, we have a reason to be afraid. Because now, Puss in Boots can't be the same old Puss in Boots that he was. Death isn't so funny now.
Because Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death, right?
But let's shut up about attempting a thematic breakdown of the artistic intelligence behind Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Without all of that pretentious English teacher stuff, Puss in Boots rocks because of another reason. It's just so cool to look at. The animation in this movie is incredible. DreamWorks takes full advantage of the animation medium and makes every single shot feel like a museum painting. It's gorgeous. For a long time, animated movies seemed to always look the same. From Toy Story onward, you could never really tell which animation studio was responsible for which movie because they just looked like each other. Until recently. Something has kind of started to spark in the animation industry. Maybe since Spider-Verse, they realized, hey, wait a minute, we can literally do whatever we want with this. Let's get weirder. This is animation. Let's animate. And thanks to this, we get some truly delightful scenes and shots coming from this movie. It's almost like they actually switched animation styles between different scenes, switching from a more traditional 3D style into a hyper-stylized blend of 2D, even throwing a dash of anime inspiration into the mix. Also, with most of the fight scenes, it's super visible that they did in fact take inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse with how scenes are shot on twos. What does on twos mean? Well, on twos just refers to what's called the step of an animation. Movies are shot and played at a frame rate of 24 frames per second. And so when you hear an animation is on twos, that just means every frame lasts 2 frames, essentially making it 12 frames per second. But in these animated movies, it's even more than that. Because if you go and play back a scene from the film, the cameras themselves are actually still moving every single frame. It's only the characters that appear to last 2 frames. So basically, during these action scenes, the camera is at 24 while the characters are at 12, which is why it feels a bit choppy. But that's the whole point. The style is meant to invoke a more traditional stop-motion-like organic feeling of motion, which is subtle, but does wonders for the way it looks. The internet and social media is a vile place. Disgusting stuff happens on there every day. Right now, a young actress is being torn apart for no reason other than her face. But despite all of that, it's also a wonderful place, because without it, you'd never have gone to see this Oscar-worthy movie. Through the sheer willpower of memes, yet again, the people have taken control over the box office. And I don't think people have yet to realize just how powerful they are. It was only a few years ago where you guys bullied a whole studio into delaying the release of their movie just so they could slightly change the design of their character. And they did, and you rewarded them for it.
Return control of this city to the people.
So what do we do with this information?
With great power comes great responsibility.
People want to see good movies, but we need to realize that good movies only come if that's what you pay to see. If a movie comes along that you love so much, that you found to be an absolute delight of an experience that you will remember for years to come, an experience you want to see other people experience, a movie you want to see other people see, just let them know. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is maybe the peakest of peaks when it comes to full family entertainment. And yes, it deserves that 4.3 letterbox rating.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie!